Copper theft is estimated to cost the economy just over 5 billion rand a year, and then another 2 billion rand to replace stolen cables. Transnet reported 1,121 kilometers of cable stolen in the 2023 financial year, and that's a nearly 8-fold increase over a 5-year period. Cable theft at substations around the country are also responsible for major outages. So we'll talk about cable theft, but we will also talk about illegal connections, impact on the grid, and its impact on the integrity of electricity supply. And I'm joined by Mthunzi Luthuli, who is an engineering and energy expert. Mthunzi, good morning. Welcome to the program. You know, as I said to Nobushle Modise when we came out of Durban, everywhere you look in South Africa, there are problems, and not just tiny problems, major problems, complex problems, which impact infrastructure as a whole. Just reading a report from Joburg City Power, and they say that the problems are daily, and of course it has an impact on outages. When you look at illegal connections, that's a major attribute for why we have the challenges to our electricity supply. So maybe just paint a picture for our viewers just on how big a problem illegal connections are.
Good morning, Iman, and good morning to the viewers. Well, it's a really big problem. When you design an electrical system, you always estimate what the load is going to be, and then you size your infrastructure accordingly. Okay, your cables, your transformers, everything is properly done according to the designs. Now, when you get illegal connections, usually what it means is that the load then that gets imposed on the system is usually much higher than what the system was designed for. And what that does is that it overloads the system with an impact of blowing up transformers, because transformers get overloaded. It has an impact on cables, etc., etc. So it is really a huge problem, both from a technical perspective and obviously from a financial perspective, because those illegal connections represent loss of revenue.
Well, not only the loss of revenue, right? So there's this exponential addition to the balance sheet in terms of the maintenance then, or the fixing of infrastructure that has now gone blown, and it has this, cascading effect. I love that term, a cascading effect on households and on businesses. So the impact to not only lives but to the economy is exponential. Yeah,
it definitely is. But I think we need to think about what the source of this is, of these illegal connections. I think that the socioeconomic problems that we have are actually the source of these illegal connections. I don't think that people just want to do it because, they are being nasty, or, it's a socioeconomic problems. If you look at the price of electricity over the last 12 to 15 years, it's risen since 2009. It's risen by around 600%. 600%. Now, if you are somebody who is on a 350 grant, there is no way that you can afford electricity, especially after it has risen by 600% over the last few years. So you do get those socioeconomic problems that exacerbate this problem.
Well, let's dig deeper into that specifically, because there's so much frustration by people who are paying for electricity, who feel like a lot of these costs, these added costs and escalating costs, are as a result of this problem at its heart. You talk about the socioeconomic challenges. People will say, well, there's an indigent provision for people who can't afford, basic services like water and electricity. So there's a provision made for them every month. And then we'll say, well, what is your authority for saying that people really do want to pay for electricity if only they'd have the money? So just share with us, maybe from your perspective, I mean, is there some research studies that say that the majority of people who are using electricity illegally actually want to pay?
Look, I haven't seen any studies. Maybe there's some that have been done, but I haven't come across any. But just talking to the people on the ground, it is a problem. Now, it's difficult to say, how many of those are actually presenting a real problem and how many are simply just avoiding paying for electricity. But nevertheless, the problem is there. It's the extent to which it's impacting on society and obviously on the municipalities and ESCOM.
It also talks about oversight, Mthunzi, and policing, because a lot of these connections, I mean, they're visible. They don't happen underground. They happen via the cable to a house. The community is aware of it, and it is everywhere. A lot of times it happens in places where there isn't a formalized community, informal dwellings. They might be able to, take power from this or that source. What needs to happen, given, as you say, the impact is not only financial, but it has a cascading effect on a number of different things. How does this country, how do the law enforcement authorities and everyone else involved, including the community, rally around this to eradicate a problem that's become so big?
Look, I think it will take political will. What we don't have in this country, and it's not just with the problem of cable theft that we're talking about, illegal connections, but it's cable theft, it's violent crime, it's corruption, it's everything. What we're seeing in this country is a state that is not fulfilling its responsibilities. Okay. In fact, sometimes I wonder if we have a state, because the primary reason for having a state is law and order and to protect the citizens against foreign invasion, protect the borders, and then lay the laws that will govern the country, and then make sure that there's law and order. There is no law and order. Our borders are wide open. There's corruption everywhere. So it's a general problem with the political will of making sure that there's order in our country and that people abide by the law. So, and until people have that sense that, if I engage in all of these things, illegal connections, cable theft, whatever it is, that there will be repercussions, they will not stop.
Let's talk about a little bit more the impact on electricity. I think at the beginning we spoke about the infrastructural impact that it has, the replacement of state assets, government assets, essentially. What are some of the other risks associated with illegal connections? I mean, cable theft, it's well documented. It affects a wide network of things across the country, including the integrity of electricity supply. Yeah. Just share with us, again, and speaking specifically around electricity provision, the risks brought by illegal connections.
Okay. So the two that immediately come to mind is safety. Okay. Illegal connections are usually not done according to, your standard technical...
Well, it's illegal, right? So
yeah,
they're making a plan.
Because it's illegal, yeah. So it poses serious safety concerns. Electrocution, children could die, that type of thing. So there's that, which is a big problem, not only for the authorities, but I guess primarily for the people who are actually doing the illegal connections. The other problem, obviously, is that for the municipalities and for ESCOM, is that you can't plan. Normally when you plan electrification, you will know that the people live in these areas, these are the densities, this is the average demand per household, what we call ADMD, after diversity maximum demand. You have all of those numbers and you design your system accordingly. When you get these illegal connections, you can't do that. And whatever it is that you had planned 10 years ago is basically, out of the window.
And there is a perfect storm brewing, I suppose, in some ways, when you read the statistics on in-migration of people also leaving other provinces to pursue job opportunities in places like Egoli in Johannesburg, setting up an informal home for them to, you know, to be able to, because accommodation again is high. As you say, there are so many reasons and layers behind what we see just on the outside in terms of the illegal connections. I wanted to talk about this one very quickly, since time allows. Corruption Watch pointing out with regard to copper theft that there are 15 interconnected illicit markets driven by a complex and evolving criminal underground. This is the way they describe it. And the markets range from illegal firearms, wildlife crime, kidnapping, illicit drugs, illegal mining and organized corruption. Given how entrenched the concept of cable theft is and connected to all of these different things, where people are actively thinking about how can we make money off of this, and it, you know, in a lot of the work it may highlight the connection to people who are politically connected even. Are we ever going to root this out? On the illegal connection side, you can see it sometimes there's small players, small syndicates that are operating and charging people, you know, to be able to do that and so on. And then you have this on a macroeconomic scale. Is this problem too big for us, Mthunzi, do you think?
Look, I don't think it's too big for us. And as I said earlier, I think we need political will. You know, Iman, corruption it destroys countries. There was a time when I used to travel a lot around the continent. And what I noticed is that there is so much potential in almost all of the countries around our continent. But what's holding us back is lawlessness, lack of, as I say, law and order, and corruption. I remember one time I went to Nigeria. We're looking at upgrading the Apapa container terminal in Lagos. Now, ports usually have rail networks going in and out. You know, for
coal or aluminium or whatever the product is.
All the cargo that goes in and out. And so the guy that was taking us around, the port manager, showed us everything, and we looked at the infrastructure that we have to upgrade and all of that. Then I asked him, I said, look, you know, where is your rail? And he said, at first he didn't want to answer the question. Eventually he said, we don't have it. I said, but, you know, it's unimaginable to have a port that doesn't have a rail system going in and out. And he said, well, we don't have it. I said, you must have had it. You know, you guys were a British colony, and I know that the Brits, everywhere where they went, they built, in the colonial days, they built railway lines. Eventually, he admitted that, look, we used to have a rail system in this country. Right now, we don't have a single train running in the country. This was around 2004. And I said, but why? He said, it's corruption. I said, he said, look, we used to have a Transnet like you guys, but the trains would, the money for maintenance would get stolen. The trains would grind to a halt in the middle of nowhere, and that's where they would stay. People take those coaches and they use them as houses or accommodation. I said, but you don't even have railway tracks. He said, yeah, railway tracks that steal.
Even that's been taken.
And even that's been chopped.
Are you saying that this is kind of the future that, you know, South Africa is staring down if things go unchecked?
If we continue down this path, this is where we're going. Okay. Transnet already, you mentioned earlier, they had, I don't know how many thousands of kilometers of copper stolen.
Over 1,000, yeah.
Yeah. And it's getting worse, it's not getting better. And I fear that we will have a similar situation to what Nigeria has, where trains couldn't run because the infrastructure had just been vandalized.